Barry, congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
I know you spoke about how kind of hugely technically challenging this film was. What was your first day like making the film? What was the thing that do you remember the first day?
I do remember the first day of just, playing around with the virtual production. And I was like, there is no way I can get through 3 years of making a film like this. We had a very rough around the edges temporary setup. And in that setup, we were trying to figure out the blocking of this test scene that we were creating, but we were doing it by sliding characters around, almost like you have a puzzle piece, like on a chessboard, and you would see them slide, and then we were setting up camera angles, and it was just so, I don't even know how to describe it, but I couldn't understand how to make a cinematic language, a film grammar that made sense, because there wasn't anything real that was happening. And so right away, we began to work away from that version of the process and work towards the one that we ended up with, which had some really great live action principles.
Now, obviously, sitting here, the film's premiered and you're kind of in the aftermath of it all. Has there been anything over the 3-year process where you've kind of thought about things and now you think, oh, I might take this thing into my future filmmaking? Is there something that you're now like?
1000%. It's a great way to location scout. It's a great way to figure out, if you have a certain degree of control. Let's say you're making a movie, that's a green screen or a blue screen kind of situation. You're still going to have actors and like an actual camera, but filming it against blue or green screen. Great tool to figure out. Matt Reeves actually used it quite a bit to figure out, some of his camera setups on the Batman. Great tool for that. If you're making another one of these films, that's, purely virtual production. I think the way we took some of the elements from Lightstorm's setup for our Avatar and brought them into this process, really great. I could probably make this movie in, I'd say realistically, 2/3 of the time if I had to make it again with the place we evolved to with the technology. So I think there's definitely things I'll take from it.
Kelvin and Aaron are two actors that I'm very enamored with at the moment, having seen Cyrano and recently seen Rebel Ridge, two fantastic performances. You obviously cast them, before obviously Aaron came out of Rebel Ridge. What was it about those two actors that kind of embodied what you were looking for with this?
I mean, I've auditioned, I've worked with Aaron. I did the Underground Railroad with him, so I knew what he was very capable of. And then with Kelvin, I almost cast him in a prior work. So I knew all about him as well. It wasn't about the idea of pairing them. It was just the quality they both brought to their vocal performances, their vocal auditions for these characters. When you make this film, the whole thing starts purely in voices as a radio play. And you want someone who can communicate, who can use just one tool, their voice, to communicate very clear emotions, because those vocal recordings are what gets carried through all of the storyboarding process, the VCAM production animation, and then of course the post animation that ends up in the cinema. And so I think they both just brought this really rich quality to the characters.
I spoke to you in 2016 at London Film Festival when you were premiering Moonlight and how excited you and your cast were. And now it's almost to the 10-year decade. In terms of your kind of career in those 10 years, what's been kind of the thing that you've learned the most in terms of being in the industry for the 10 years?
Oh, the thing I've learned the most, and it's almost something that kept me from doing this film, is the power of saying no. You have a career and you're trying to unlock this thing where people say yes, and that's all you're working towards. And then something happens like a Moonlight, and then very quickly you have to flip and go, okay, now my job is to say no as often as possible, because not every opportunity is the right opportunity, and you can become overwhelmed with opportunities. And because of that, I almost said no to this just out of principle, just out of habit, because I'd been working so much to retrain my brain to think, you don't accept or you don't need every opportunity. And so that's something that I feel like has been really instrumental in this 10-year or 8-year run that myself and my collaborators have been on since Moonlight.
As a final question, this is a bit of a personal question. I used to follow you on Twitter before. I don't use Twitter anymore, and I know that you're a big fan of the Premier League and football and all that kind of stuff. And I haven't followed you for a while. I just wondered, in terms of that? Do you still follow it? And
Yeah.
have you been able to see any of, because you've been doing this for 3 years, have you been able to absorb it in the same way?
I have not, and so I've really drifted and just become like a fan of international tournaments. You know?
Oh, I saw that you tweeted about a pass a few years ago in the Colombia in the World Cup and stuff like that.
That was great. You talking about James Rodriguez? He stole the ball way deep in their own territory. It's great. He's like passed the ball completely, like curved, almost like 45 degrees, like right on a dime. I mean, it was like beautiful.
Is there a Premier League team that you always look for the results?
I'm not going to answer that question, man. No, you're going to get me in trouble. No, I want the movie to do well in UK cinemas.
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
I have no team. I support everybody. Everybody.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!